That is like the craziest fucking arena I've ever seen. Whoa, bro, oh, that actually makes my eyes tear up. Look, my eyes are like
Elden Ring.
FromSoftware's game design changed everything by NakeyJakey. Well, I'll be the judge of that, although I'll probably end up agreeing with everything he says anyway, so I don't know if that's quite true. Let's just watch it though.
FromSoftware's game design has had a undeniable and profound effect on not only the gaming industry, but the industry of...
Sorry, I thought he would start the video out by just reading the title, and I know some people do that, but I think maybe you know...
Jacobs, people named Jacobs, such as myself. With the massive success of Elden Ring, FromSoftware has further established that
Yeah, Elden Ring sold 20 million copies, but did you know that FIFA makes just as much as Elden Ring made it in all of its fucking runtime within a year?
Merciless, uncompromising, gameplay-first design philosophy with little hand-holding or assistance can also still be a massive success that millions of people will connect with and absolutely adore.
Yes, absolutely. I have not played many FromSoft games myself. I got Elden Ring, played it for like a few minutes, or a few hours rather. I just didn't have the time to play it, so I'm planning to get back into it eventually. But you know what? I do notice the game design seeping into all the fucking other games I played. Hollow Knight, that shit it's a combination of a default ass Metroidvania plus, you know, that kind of Dark Souls-y thing.
And while typically brilliant, I also believe that FromSoftware's games are unfortunately far from perfect.
Yes, for sure.
Elden Ring is sadly no exception. And I want to talk about it. But first, I must warn you that I will be spoiling the absolute Moonlight Greatsword out of all of these games, so if you haven't experienced them for yourself, particularly Elden Ring, I strongly suggest you hit pause on this video and go savor that experience.
Fuck. That's fine, I'm sure it's fine.
200 hours, because it is quite possibly the greatest experience I have had playing a video game in my 28 years of holding a Player 2 Mad Catz controller that isn't actually plugged in. Regardless, I believe it is no
just a problem.
Exaggeration to say that in the world...
Well, just watch a Let's Play of someone else beating it, you know? Pretend like you're trying.
Video games, FromSoftware has truly changed everything. Demon's Souls was released in 2009 for the PlayStation 3.
This is the game that got the remake, right?
Like other big games coming out at the time, especially in 2009. In a year where games were becoming more and more cinematic and accessible and forgiving to a casual audience, Demon's Souls crawled.
But I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, when game devs are like, shit, most people can't play our games because they're too difficult or too bizarre. And then FromSoft comes out with like a game that's on the fucking polar opposite of the spectrum. And I mean, even before Demon's Souls, right? There are Armored Core games where you play as a mech. Those were always really hard as fuck. Their target audience has never been casuals.
Demon's Souls, like all the Souls games that came after it, is a very challenging and unforgiving video game. A difficulty that fans of the series often lovingly refer to as hard but fair.
Biggest line of bullshit I've ever heard, man. And that's not to game the game, and that's not to say the games weren't hard, you know? No, they were just really not fucking fair. There were just times when you die when it feels like you shouldn't, and the game is just fucking with you for no apparent reason. That is, oh.
So let's maybe settle on hard but mostly fair. After joining FromSoft in 2004 and working as a coder on the Armored Core series,
hey, he talked about, hey, let's go. Look at that, my gamer knowledge is coming in clutch.
Took over as director on a struggling high fantasy project that was running into some serious issues during development. Because the project was already seen as a failure inside the studio, Miyazaki was basically like, I'm gonna take this thing and I'm gonna take it out back to the garage. I'm gonna do some stuff to it. Inspired by FromSoft's own Kingsfield series, Miyazaki wanted to make a dark fantasy gameplay-driven experience in collaboration.
Man, old games had like that, the aesthetic.
Sony Japan studio.
Like nowadays, a small studio can make a game, like a single dude can make a game that looks better than what a studio made a few years ago. That's so cool.
Challenging but rewarding experience that took gaming back to its basics, something he felt was dying out at the time. During development, Miyazaki actually tried to keep the harsh difficulty aspect on the low from publisher Sony, fearing that they might want to change it for being...
So he made the game stupid hard, but he's like, guys, but Don't tell anyone, okay? Make sure they don't know that our game's difficult.
Too extreme, much like a BMX riding video game. Breaking down the basic gameplay of Demon Souls will effectively break down the basic gameplay for all of the Souls games that followed.
Yeah, like even visually, they all like you look at them and you can tell that like combat just looks and feels the same.
Because the very
samey, not like actually the same.
Core
You know what I mean?
design pillars have gone largely unchanged. It starts with a character creator that before you say anything, I know it gets better with time, that lets you pick a starting class, dictating
Yeah, it was very silly.
abilities with different weapons or magic. A third-person lock-on camera system for combat that improves on the Z targeting system that Ocarina of Time introduced back in
So that was the first game that did that. That's fucking cool.
00 of 9.8 that you can control the camera and attack people at the same time, which was kind of a breakthrough in and of itself. Animation.
That is cool. I had no idea they were like
to commit to each action.
I had no idea they actually had like a major role in, you know, inventing that stuff.
Wait until the animation finishes before you can do something else, along with managing how that action affects your stamina bar, or in the case of casting spells, your magic bar. But I didn't raise you to cast no spells. This is a Claymore household. Just
Yeah, no, we don't talk about spells. I mean, the game's clearly put less importance into the spells than weapons, regardless, right? Like the magic systems are kind of mid and boring. We watched a whole video on Wizard Games, actually. If you care about that, you know, I reacted to it. Just go look through my videos there. It's kind of recent, well, like a month ago or something.
Father and his father before him. A dodge roll that contains invincibility frames, or iframes, meaning that if you time your dodge right, nothing can possibly hurt you. Similar to action games like Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
Corpse running, where if you die, you drop all the currency you've racked up from.
And then you need to pick it up, and if you don't, and if you die again while trying to pick it up, you lose that shit. See, that's a thing that, for example, Hollow Knight took. Like, FromSoft games have inspired, so like they've affected the way lots of other games are played. Like even if you don't play their games, their own games, the other games you'll play will have a lot of stuff borrowed from these, like elements.
Make it back to that spot without dying, otherwise you lose it forever. Passive and non-passive online interaction, where other players can leave helpful tips or whatever the opposite of a helpful tip is, along with summoning or.
I mean, it's like a funny, quirky mechanic, but I don't think it does much for games. And I saw a few games adopt this, like Nier, for example. Nier decided to do Nier Automata. At least I've not played other Nier games. And that just feels like so pointless. I don't know. It just doesn't add anything to the game, man.
Being summoned as a random cooperator to help, or invasions to either kill or be killed. And you know, the gameplay of each individual Souls game obviously goes a lot deeper than that, with different complex systems and healing items and stupid convoluted bullshit like world tendency that you need a fucking master's degree to understand. But the challenging and methodical combat system, that has always been the beating heart of all of these games.
For sure.
A heart that's married to another heart. Exploration. You know how in my Rockstar's game design video, I really harp on how those games constantly berate you with hyper-specific instructions and yellow map markers and
well, why do they even bother creating an open world if they don't let you like run around it? You know, if they don't make you do it. It seems a little silly to me. And yeah, for example, Elden Ring, it doesn't do that. Like, it has a very general, like, there's a fucking big tree in the distance, and you're like, okay, well, I guess I go to that. Fuck, I don't. And how you get there is up to you.
Tiny baby rat. Yeah, the Souls games do like the exact polar opposite.
Exactly,
the
it's so
rat
good.
Is now actually a boss, and you have no idea what the fuck is going on. And what makes exploration so compelling in Demon Souls, and really all Souls games,
is this modded? Is this an actual fucking boss in Elden Ring?
What makes exploration so compelling in Demon Souls, and really all Souls games, is that it is true exploration.
Well, that's not Elden Ring. You know what I mean, though.
So compelling in Demon Souls, and really all Souls games, is that it is true exploration that really makes you feel like Batman. No.
Oh, God, fuck. Okay. Yeah.
It
really makes you feel.
Makes you feel like an explorer. There is no detailed map that you can rely on and consult, only your own sense of direction and understanding of a space. This, along with a strong challenge and an actual fear of having something.
Oh, I like that you can like see his boot leaking, so you know where to attack.
Makes discoveries and victories feel that much more meaningful and rewarding. Because
exactly, that's why Metroidvanias work.
The player actually charted and conquered.
That is, if it's the style of game where you actually get a truly open world that you can explore on your actually own, and like, even if, you know, at the end of the day you'll end up running into parts of the world that are restricted until you get some upgrade or another, it still feels like you got to that point yourself because the game didn't tell you to go there to find it out. You just went, you chose to go there yourself, you know what I mean? Even if that was one of the two paths you could have taken. So it was 100% intended that you, with a 50% chance, hit that path. You know what I mean?
Space and overcame a significant challenge instead of just watching fucking Wally do
Jesus fucking Christ, I just hit my table hard.
it in a cutscene. The Souls games have very few cutscenes or long, unskippable passages.
Which fucking slaps, by the way.
Dialogue
Absolute
by
W.
NPCs or RPG conversation trees where your choice actually doesn't really matter. Instead, the story is discovered and slowly unraveled by the player through observing their environment and reading item descriptions and inevitably watching VaatiVidya videos because I don't understand any of this. So you're saying the rat was like a king at some point? Or I appreciate Miyazaki's approach to storytelling though because it's very unique to the medium of video games and was actually inspired by his real-life experience of reading English language sci-fi and fantasy books as a kid that he couldn't fully understand but would fill in the gaps using his imagination. The story is so much more
that is actually so, like, that's literally what the games work like. They give you bits of lore and you kind of have to guess the rest of the stuff. I mean, yeah, that's fucking sick. I love when games do that.
And feeling of exploring a place.
And I guess these games are the ones, the FromSoft games are the ones that made that an actual like trope in games. You know, there is a subcategory of games with that kind of exploration. People call that a Souls-like, you know what I mean?
Plot points or set pieces. The innovative online elements of summoning random strangers to help you out was actually inspired by Miyazaki's real life as well, where after his car was trapped in snow on a hill, a random group of strangers
a ghost, he found a corpse and he walked up to it and got a tip from it.
Showed up and helped push the car out of the snow and then mysteriously drifted off into the night like ghosts drifting in and out of his world at a poorly framed pace, 30 frames per second. These games also have some technical issues. Was not an immediate success. Sony decided to not publish it in North America after feeling pretty negatively about it before its release.
That's
During
actually
the
kind of
Tokyo
crazy.
Game Show in 2008, Sony president Shuei Yoshida played it for 2 hours, couldn't get past the starting area, and then stopped playing and said, "This is an unbelievably bad video game." This is the same guy that years later would platinum Bloodborne, and that game is like way harder. So spoiler alert, FromSoftware changed everything. The titular line. It wasn't until later in 2009
that is
when
crazy.
Atlas published the game.
Oh, I want to see that. I want to see his first reaction to saying it's an unbelievably bad game. Holy fuck. That is such a bad take. You're just shit. You're just shit. Skill issue.
America, that sales would slowly start to pick up and critics would start to take notice. Western audiences generally loved it.
Let's see this.
Start to pick up and critics would
great atmosphere, epic bosses, challenging. You will die lots. Outstanding.
Start to take notice. Western audiences generally loved it because apparently we're all sick, masochistic bastards.
Well, no, it's the enjoyment of escaping that masochistic jail.
And
the jail of pain.
Even gave it their Game of the Year. The same year.
The guy is so hard to kill, but once you actually finally kill him, you're like, oh, I'm the best! Woo! Yeah!
And Modern Warfare 2 came out. But along with establishing the core pillars of what a Souls game would be, it's important to talk about just how brave Miyazaki, FromSoftware, and Sony Japan Studio were for making such a different kind of game. Demon's Souls was a huge risk, an imperfect, weird, brutal passion project that was expected by everyone to flop, but refused to compromise on its design goals and eventually...
I mean, it's a pretty high budget game, like even visually, you know what I mean? Like, it looks like there's a lot of work put into it. It's weird to... It's crazy how game devs can, like, spend so much time working on something that, this shit isn't guaranteed to succeed. In fact, people were expecting it to flop, and yet they spent so much time and resources just trying to make this big-ass, cool-ass game.
An audience that really connected with it. And 2 console generations later, an extremely faithful remake was published by Sony as a launch title for the PlayStation 5.
Yes.
And there you have it. That's
No, it can't be. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're 8 minutes in. Fuck. This is gonna be a long one.
That's the end. It's the only game they ever made.
Is this? Oh, the Dark Souls of Dark Souls.
Love Dark Souls.
Okay.
But I also hated Dark Souls. My brother Isaac had played Dark Souls sometime after its release in 2011 and had repeatedly told me to play it. I eventually finally tried it, got past the tutorial.
Wait, is it actually called the Prepare to Die
Told
edition?
me to play it.
I thought that was a joke. Guys, is this the real name of the game?
Finally tried it, got past the tutorial section after a lot of struggling, made it to Firelink Shrine, wandered the wrong way into a graveyard full of skeletons, as I know a lot of people did. That graveyard eventually became a dark tunnel of skeletons.
I was gonna say the graveyard fucked me. The graveyard
Eventually became a dark tunnel of skeletons that killed me a bunch of times, and then I promptly said F this game and stopped playing. I can't remember for what exact reason, but
skill issue.
Years.
Although I did that exact same thing with Elden Ring, but I had no time. It's not like I didn't. It's not like I wasn't enjoying it. It's more like I had to
Later,
stop. But
I tried the game again, probably because of my brother's insistence. Once again, the bastard he is, and it was different. This time it stuck. Not only did it stick, but it seriously...
I bet it's because you went a different way instead of going to skeletons.
I know that sounds super dramatic, but like it completely changed the way I look at video games and why I like to play them, and made me want to talk about them more and examine them. And it absolutely ruined most other video games for me.
Yeah, because everything looks shit in comparison.
Because once I finished it, nothing could fill the giant rat boss size hole in my heart. Now,
God damn, man, it's so good to be back and reacting to videos. This shit slaps. Oh, I missed it. Fuck. You know, I was pretty down on my mood for a couple of weeks recently, but you know, now that I'm back, I probably shouldn't be making those sound effects, but
into all of the reasons why Dark
not that I
Souls
give a
is
shit,
so
to be honest.
significant in gaming history, we would be here all day, and my editor would absolutely hate that.
I am going to kill you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, don't you edit your own fucking videos? Yeah, no.
But on my road to eventually talking about
God, a 30-minute video, 36, if it's 36, yeah, a 36-minute video, all green screened and with movement and shit, and that's so much work to actually make.
I do need to touch on three crucial aspects that vastly improved on Demon Souls game design. Super Exploration DX Turbo Edition with Fuckles. Estus Flask, I hardly know her, as best as I can. And Atmosphere, you've been seen. I feel you inside my screen. I also didn't like that. What I mean by Super Exploration DX Turbo Edition with Fuckles is that Dark Souls fundamentally
please do elaborate. Oh, I think I know what he means.
Changed how level design and world design worked within this gameplay formula that Demon Souls established. While Demon Souls over here had a hub world that let you freely fast travel to different zones of varying locales and difficulty levels.
Yeah, I mean, that feels video game. It doesn't feel like exploration. It's like you're going through levels, but with open world-ish areas in them, if you know what I mean.
A lot of its zones and stacked them on top of each other like a stack of pancakes, and made sure that even if some pancakes have chocolate chips or some pancakes have bananas, that they all seamlessly flow into each other and make sense as one cohesive world.
Thanks to the calm sound effects when he added the bananas, by the way. That's awesome.
Beautiful interconnected short stack of pancakes. Blight Town is like a pancake made out of pigeons. During the first half of the game, you have no fast travel.
I don't get that one.
The areas are
not enough of a Souls fan to get that one.
In multiple complex ways like a maze. So there's this palpable sense of danger and tension that slowly rises as you venture deeper and deeper into this beautiful, mysterious world that is very clearly inspired by Berserk, which is amazing.
Yeah, it is. Whoa. How did I not catch that?
That tension is brilliantly paired with the...
That's fucking sick, actually.
...bonfires. Resting points that let you catch your breath for a second and...
I mean, Berserk slaps dick, so naturally everything that's inspired by it would also slap at least partial dick.
Spend your hard-earned currency from fighting enemies and bosses on leveling up your stat points and refilling your much-needed Estus Flask. I am of the pretty firm opinion that the healing mechanics found in Demon Souls and Bloodborne and kind of Dark Souls 2 are vastly inferior to the standard Estus Flask.
Bro, why is he... What is this cum sound effect?
Dark Souls 2 are vastly inferior to the standard Estus Flask system found in the other Souls games. The Estus has a specific amount of healing charges that you can increase throughout the course of the game, and the only way to refill your charges is by resting at a bonfire, which also respawns all
See, I think it helps a lot. Like, it's a great method of allowing you to pace the game and choose how exploration should function, but I personally just don't like being limited. Like, I like being able to take a risk and go explore way too far away from where the fuck my campfires or benches or whatever the game decides to use as a mechanic are, and then fuck myself over by dying somewhere really far away. Not because I ran out of heals, but because I just went too far, and then I have to go all the way back there to grab my fucking coins, my geo, before that shit dies. And, you know, if I run out of heals, it's my fault, not that, like, I'm literally limited by the amount of them. That feels just nicer to me personally. But then again, I don't think this is a bad decision. I just dislike this style. I dislike being limited.
Not only does this provide an extra incentive to seek out and discover bonfires and push on while exploring,
that is fucking stupid. How are you supposed to know to go through here
and discover bonfires and push on while exploring? But it solves the dumbass problem those other games have, where your healing items are a finite currency that you can run out of.
Yeah, no, for sure. So he agrees with me that healing should be limited by gameplay, and like it shouldn't be a thing where you can infinitely heal. Like, oh, I can pop 100 flasks in 1 second if I wanted to, and I will instantly fucking be able to beat any boss so long as I have enough of them. But at the same time, then I won't have any left to explore, or I'll have to farm some money to get more. That is just a horrible decision, and the solution to that is, yeah, make it so it's limited by gameplay. Either, yeah, you have to upgrade the amount of them you can carry or how much they heal per thing, or alternatively, just do what Hollow Knight did, which is make them reattainable as you're playing through the game, but set a hard cap of like a few heals before you have to. Like, you can't have more than a few heals on you at a time, so that you don't cheese bosses by, you know, stacking up 10,000 heals in your inventory. Or not even bosses, difficult segments of the game.
If you're struggling with the game and you keep dying, and you will.
Yeah, you will run. Like, that is so stupid. That makes no sense. The game is difficult, right? And as he said, yeah, you will die. So once you run out of heals, look, there's like grasses. You see, like 2 crescent moon grasses. Once you run out of them, you're fucked, right? The game is too difficult for you to go get, like, for you to keep progressing. So you're literally just stuck.
You will likely have to halt progression just to go grind mobs of weaker enemies for healing items.
And that just sucks. That is so not fun.
On healing items and not leveling up, which feels so unnecessarily punishing in a game where enemies do this to you. With the Estus, you at least know that for the next bit, you have a guaranteed specific amount of heals.
Exactly.
Much like a survival horror game, the goal is to get to the next area using as little Estus as best as you can. I think one of the greatest single improvements over Demon Holes over here is the atmosphere. I will never forget how it felt to
I just noticed my face fucking becomes like pink every time the white screen comes on. Look.
Holes over here is the atmosphere. I will never forget how it felt to get lost in this world. Struggling my ass off
it's the rhyme. It's the bars right here, all the bars. Atmosphere. Oh no, I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna do it.
Struggling my ass off through Undead Burg and Undead Parish, and finally being rewarded by finding that shortcut back to Firelink Shrine and hearing that comforting music creep in. That seriously changed.
Finding shortcuts, by the way, best feeling in the game. And yeah, having the music that plays specifically in save zones, that shit also slaps so hard.
The trajectory of my firstborn son's life. He's getting into Brown now. Journeying all the way down to first the depths, and then Blight Town, and then finding the entrance that's a secret to the Great Hollow.
I love this video. It's so good. We're only 30 minutes in, and it's like, it's already so much to talk about.
At Ash Lake gave me a feeling that I will forever cherish. The inability to easily fast travel back up to Firelink.
That looks fucking badass. Holy shit.
Journey.
Man, this area looks sick.
All the way down.
And the soundtrack as well.
Simultaneously had me terrified and also in complete awe of the vertical scope of this world. And there's so much of this game that you can just completely miss.
That is insane.
From Software, it does.
for an old game as well. Like,
doesn't care
oh
if
my
every
God.
player sees all of the content that they made for this game, and that makes finding the stuff that you do find feel that much more special and memorable. I know it's just all smoke and mirrors and code and textures, but the illusion that FromSoftware sells here is a powerful one.
Yeah.
Except for some clearly unfinished areas towards the end of the game, but those don't exist. You made a lot.
But they look good. Like, this looks cool, right? Like, when I first saw this on some gameplay where you like travel into basically the underworld, I was like, holy fuck, that's cool. I mean, I guess gameplay wise it's broken as shit, and maybe the map design is bad. I don't know, I've never played this. But it looks bad.
Gaslight.
Bad isn't good. I don't know why I always say bad.
Unlike Demon Souls, Dark Souls was a pretty instant success. Critics loved it, and the game reached a much larger audience right off the bat.
Twisted world. Twisted, comma, world. Why is there a comma there? Online experience, deep, pure gameplay, not for the timid.
Thanks to Bandai Namco publishing it all over the world on PS3 and Xbox 360 and
I had an Xbox 360, and I bet I had this game, and I never played it. I feel so bad for that. Actually, no, I was like 11. Because, okay, yeah, a fun fact. My Xbox had like 500 games that are all paid, and they're all free thanks to a cool guy that... I had a local store that sold consoles that had like basically all of the newest up-to-date games on them for free, and you only had to pay like $10 for them to go install that. That shit was sick, especially for me, because, you know, in Ukraine... with the conversion rates and all that, shit was expensive as fuck to buy. And, you know, the average person in Ukraine is broke as fuck.
One of the most janky PC ports to ever.
I can't believe I never played this. I mean, again, I was like 10 or whatever, so I probably would have hated this game with how difficult it is, and I probably wouldn't have figured out anything, but it is,
Shout out Games for Windows Live, RIP. This also annoyingly led to so many industry heads resorting to the phrases, it's like Dark Souls, or this is the Dark Souls of blank, when...
Or, you know, even the phrase Souls-like.
All they're trying to say is that it's hard. Going to Arby's is like the Dark...
Yeah, no. I hate that. Look, when something is the Dark Souls of something, that means it's got like elements of Dark Souls. You know, it has the same tropes, the same mechanics, but no, these games are nothing like Dark Souls. All they have is difficulty. Dark Souls didn't invent difficulty, they just made it good.
Dark Souls of going to Carl's Jr. Hollow Knight is very clearly inspired by...
Let's go, he's talking about Hollow Knight!
Software's approach, and that game is undoubtedly the greatest Metroidvania ever made.
Yes!
I fucking love Hollow Knight.
Yes!
Because it perfected a design aspect from Dark Souls 1 that FromSoftware themselves kind of started to abandon with subsequent Souls games. Non-linear exploration. Shut up already, Jesus!
He had no... Was this made before Elden Ring?
That guy loves to talk. Hi!
Because I'm pretty sure Elden Ring has very non-linear explanation. Although maybe they abandoned it with their older ones, but hey.
Jakey.
Let's watch this ad segment. Let's go.
Jakey, attorneys at law. Here at Jakey and Jakey, we have a lot of expenses. And a lot of those expenses are monthly subscriptions that we totally...
Wait, hold up. I gotta align this thing. Ah, perfect. Okay, not quite. It's like slightly... Yeah,
that we're even paying for. Well, today's sponsor, Rocket Money, is here to help. Rocket Money is an all-in-one finance platform that helps you save more and spend less. This personal finance app allows you to manage subscriptions, lower bills, build a custom budget, and grow your savings all in one place.
That's awesome. This is an app I would 100% use if I had money.
Identify and securely cancel
to manage
charges or unwanted subscriptions, all with the simple tap of a finger. Which is a godsend for the social anxiety of having to actually call people on the phone to cancel stuff. What is this, fucking 1882 Columbus?
And then they also, why do you want to cancel it? What's wrong? Why are you not happy with this? This is great.
The Ocean's 11. We also use it to track our monthly spending and set budgets. Rocket Money notifies us if we exceed that budget, along with showing our spend to earn ratio every month, quarter, or year. Also, if you're like us and gonna turn 29 this year, maybe you're starting to pay a little bit more attention to your credit score. Well, Rocket Money alerts you.
Imagine having credit score L. I know what I'm doing. Sorry, I had an unprecedented dumbass bitch attack.
Changes to your score, and also
America moment though, or China, I guess.
Improve your score as well to save more and spend less.
I'm so glad you live in a country that doesn't have this shit.
Rocket Money. We've got the hookup.
But hey,
Go
if
to
you do, you know, rocket money's free, I suppose. Use his link.
rocketmoney.com/NakeyJakey, or click the link in the description to get started for free or unlock even more features with premium. That's rocketmoney.com/NakeyJakey to get started for free. Get your money right. All right, now let's
That's
get on back
awesome.
to Naked Jake in the curious case of the floating rake. This guy never even beat Digimon World 2. That's a real Souls game. I'm out of here.
Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne, and Dark Souls 3 all have much more straightforward progression paths than the first half of Dark Souls 1. And while a lot of areas in these games are technically connected and sometimes offer alternate paths, the general world design is far less interesting from a exploration point of view. And it doesn't mean
All right,
that
let's
these
see.
games are bad. All of these games probably each
Let's see this again real quick. I wanna have a closer look.
sometimes offer alternate paths. The general
I see. So it's like not like a massive branch. You don't have 10 billion options to
world
choose
design
from.
is far less interesting from a exploration point of view. And it doesn't mean that these games are bad. All of these games probably each deserve their own 40-minute feature presentation breaking them
Oh yeah,
down.
for certain. No, they 100% do it, and they 100% have those presentations just made by other YouTubers.
For the sake of what I want to get into today, I'm just going to give you the Spark Notes version.
Dun,
Dark Souls 2
dun,
dropped
dun, 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 dun. Okay.
2014 and was received well and sold well. It further grew the Souls game community and deepened combat systems while adding stuff like power stancing. Miyazaki didn't
Power
direct this
stancing.
one, and it
That's a phrase that haunts me to this day, because when I hear people say power stancing, I assume they just get like, yeah. Is a T-pose a power stance?
The atmosphere
That's the real question.
zone feels a bit random and unconnected from the overall world, but the boss fights and DLCs are great, and the game enjoyed a large online community for shit like PvP. Bloodborne was developed
Alright,
alongside
that's good.
Dark Souls 2 and was released exclusively.
To be honest, I don't think these games are ever really popular for PvP. I think PvP is a good element to have in these games, but sometimes. I don't think it's what makes the games.
for the PS4 in 2015, and I used money from a car accident to buy a PS4 in Bloodborne instead of paying my rent. And contrary to what my financial advisors,
It was a great idea.
and Logan Roy looking ass, I'd say it was a wise investment.
Fuck
Directed
yeah.
by Miyazaki, Bloodborne felt like the true follow-up to Dark Souls 1. At least for people like me that just want to swing a big sword and fucking parry everything. Bye-bye magic, go back to fucking Waverly Place. Faster combat that rewards aggressive play. Intricate and varied weapon movesets. An atmosphere that just drips out of your TV with such dedicated attention to detail and talent in the art design department and rats.
God, the
Dark Souls 3
fucking
dropped in
animals in this
2015.
game. Yeah, and the rats, obviously. You can't forget the rats. Yeah, the creatures in this game look sick. And even the character, man, just, it looks so good.
By this point, the Souls series was poppin' and beloved by many people. Directed once again by Miyazaki, DS3 did everything right on paper. It kept some of the faster-paced combat and fucked up enemy designs and boss transformations from Bloodborne, while also returning an expansive armory of weapons and magic, lending to a buttload of different kinds of builds. It has a large amount of fan service and callbacks to Dark Souls 1 and some of the hardest bosses seen in a Souls game yet. It also just feels really good.
I want
play.
to see this again.
Hardest boss
Oh, look at this fucking environment with a massive guy in the background.
is seen in a Souls
Oh, that's fucking cool.
game yet. It also just feels really good to play and looks beautiful, but also something about this formula was starting to feel just a little bit stale.
I mean, it's the third game in a row you played with the same formula. It's natural,
Don't get
really.
me wrong, playing through Dark Souls 3, especially doing co-op boss fights with my brother, was some of the most fun I've had in any of these games. But that strong sense of exploration felt in Dark Souls 1, that feeling of charting your way through a mysterious and dangerous world.
So I wonder if it's because the game is worse, or like worse in that regard, specifically the exploration aspect, or if it's because you're just too used to doing it in the previous games, or probably a mix of both, to be honest, or not. I don't know.
I longed for that. The Dark Souls series had completely shaken the game industry and clearly inspired other developers to change how their games were designed and played. But
Yes,
playing Dark
yes.
Souls 3 felt a bit like listening to FromSoftware's greatest hits versus hearing the band's new album that would maybe take them someplace new. Little did I know,
Yeah,
FromSoftware
nice
was
analogy.
in the studio working on their In Rainbows, as in the album In Rainbows by Radiohead, as in Radiohead's best album, as in Elden Ring. Some of you might be wondering, Jacob Matthew, Why did it take you so long to make a video on Elden Ring? And I have 2 answers for you. A, last year
I never called you Jacob Matthew, but
very
okay.
busy working on an album called Rom-Com.
Maybe I will now.
JakeyMerch.com. And B, this game is just too damn big and felt too daunting to dissect and
That's
talk
fair.
about. And
That's fair.
I also just wanted to keep playing it, but I feel like I'm finally ready to get into it with my support group. That's you. This is all of you.
What, the
Where
stock people?
do I even begin though? Elden Ring isn't perfect, but that's also what makes it so compelling. It's not properly balanced. I mean, none of these games are. They never have been. FromSoft has pretty clear favorites when it comes to certain weapons and buffs and spells. You
That's
can
fair.
absolutely break these games in half if you really want to.
Holy
but the
shit.
sheer depth of content.
They look so good.
slowly
These games look so good, man. What is this?
want to. But the sheer depth of content that
This is like reading. This is how it feels to read a book, and you're like, this is like the environments I imagine when I'm
Elden
reading.
Ring slowly
fantasy
unveils
shit.
to you during your 200 or so
This is the Berserk guy. Someone made the Berserk
hours
guy.
of playing it.
Guts.
The childhood fantasy of exploring a fantastical, magical world filled with swords and beasts and, you guessed it, rats, is fully manifested in a way that knows no contemporary. There is no other Elden Ring than Elden Ring. This isn't just the Dark Souls of Dark Souls. This is the Dark Souls of Breath of the Wild. This is the Dark Souls of Red Dead Redemption 2. If you took a time machine back to
The one company that gets a pass on saying this is the Dark Souls of something is FromSoft.
2003 and showed my wooden sword in the backyard swinging ass that this is what was coming in the future, I would have shot you in the head.
I would be coming in the future.
Called the cops. Elden Ring is truly the adventure of a lifetime. But because I've already spent so much time talking about the core design.
This is what isekai novels wish they were, or books. This is what people imagine when they think of traveling to a different world and starting anew. This is it.
and pillars that
But like hard, really hard, like really hard.
all of these games share. I want to instead focus on certain pillars that Elden Ring innovates on or potentially fails to innovate on. Exploration
let's see it.
and scale, dungeons and dragons.
Exploration and scale right away, way better. I haven't even played much of it, like again, only a few hours, but I know that just from the sheer amount of content I've consumed on YouTube.
Starring Chris Pine, and difficulty and accessibility. Where Dark Souls 1's world
And I
is
don't
like a
I don't know about the other two yet.
stack of pancakes all connected, Elden Ring's world is like a giant stack of pancakes, and you took all those pancakes and you spread them out across a giant table, and most of the pancakes are touching each other, and some of the pancakes
and you like can jump over them, but or you can like do a sick path to like pathfind onto the pancakes. Oh, I see what you're doing. Okay.
have other pancakes hiding underneath them, and other pancakes might transport you to far pancakes in f***ed up ways, and some of the pancakes are on fire and make you feel fear. I don't want to be in this Denny's anymore. Let me out. Miyazaki
That is awesome.
stated that Elden Ring is the closest thing to his ideal game that he would personally like to play, and that going open world enriches this ideal experience that he's trying to achieve. A game
sure.
where if you saw something over there, you could actually go over there. A game that isn't open world just to be in the same category as some bloated Ubisoft bullshit, but a game that's
Fuck Ubisoft.
open world
That's all I have to
because
say
it
here.
needs to be. In order to fully capture the fantasy of being an adventurer in a giant world, riding across a vast landscape on your trusty steed, you first need to have that vast landscape.
Exactly.
to really
You can't
nail
just have terrain, a terrain map, and call it a
that
day.
feeling. Elden Ring was inspired by Breath of the Wild, and it very clearly shows, because like Breath of the Wild, Elden Ring knows and expects that your curiosity will naturally lead you to finding interesting things. There doesn't need to be an overwhelming list of things to check off or
It is okay. You know what? His analogy now makes a lot more sense. You know how he called it the fucking Dark Souls of Breath of the Wild? I think that's actually pretty fucking accurate.
map markers going over here. It's fucking over here. Because that would totally rob the player of a true sense of mystery and discovery.
What the game is actually doing is, look at this shiny ass door, bro. Go in it. Come on, go in it. Look at this shiny ass door. You can't not. Come on, it looks so enticing. I bet you're either gonna insta die or you'll be fucking rewarded, you know? And either way, it's probably gonna be fun.
Exploring this massive world. Elden Ring is very okay with hiding its hand. This is what the map looks like when you start the game, and this is what it looks like when you finish the game. and these are the pancakes that are cooking underneath you the entire time. Having a chest throw a smoke grenade at you in the starting area and being transported and waking up in one of the most giant late game areas and checking the map and seeing it zoom out like that was an experience I will never forget. And the lore behind the lands between is so rich in detail and intrigue. Miyazaki's style of storytelling through gameplay, combined with the Bible of world history that George R.R. Martin developed for this game, will leave an MF feeling like goddamn Amy Adams, as in downright enchanted. I know I haven't mentioned Sekiro once in this video because it's technically not a Souls game, but it was a crucial stepping stone towards Elden Ring's development. The addition of a dedicated jump button may sound like a simple thing, but it completely...
No, I think games without jumps are fucking cringe. Why can't I jump? I honestly, that's one of my biggest pet peeves in games. Biggest is when it's a game that has like terrain that looks like you'd be able to like jump up it and like run around and explore, but you kind of just pathfind it like a fucking loser where you have to walk up a set of stairs, and if there's a little fence, oh, guess what? You can't get over the fence. You have to walk around it because you can't jump. And if the game didn't add braking physics to that fucking fence, well, guess what? You're gonna have to take the long way.
Changes combat and the way you navigate this world. Exploring the lands between over like 200 hours rivaled the experience I had exploring the first half of Dark Souls 1. They both hit really hard, but for different reasons. The first half of Dark Souls 1 hits hard because of a lack of a fast travel safety net, meaning you become very intimate with your surroundings and the world design nearly suffocates you with its complexity. It suffocates in a good way. Elden Ring hits hard not only because
like in a kinky way.
Marks the return of multiple areas connecting to each other with a very non-linear path of progression, but because of just the sheer scale of the world. But because the sheer scale and intrigue of always wanting to see what's around the next corner is such a big part of this experience, much like Breath of the Wild, the game won't ever hit quite as hard on subsequent playthroughs
yeah, for sure.
That main draw of discovery is no longer there. This doesn't mean you shouldn't play multiple playthroughs of this game because, oh my god, weapons and spells and armor sets and ashes of war and summoning.
Yeah, try different builds.
Summoning salt videos, quest lines that you can super easily miss, and you will because they're super.
I think I actually watched this guy. Wait, hold up. Summoning salt. Here's to. I know his name, but I don't know if I watched him.
Quest lines that you can super easily miss, and you will because they're super convoluted and hard to follow. You should definitely play the game a second time. But I will say that on my second playthrough, I definitely wasn't as eager to revisit all of the content.
Yeah, no, there's no reason to check every part of the map. You go to the parts of the map that you like, you know, that stood out to you, or where you remember getting specific progressions, or if there's specific bosses you just want to fight for the fuck of it. The sake of it.
Was exactly around every corner. Elden Ring has a massive amount of unique and amazing content to experience. But there's also some super not amazing content in there too. In Joseph Anderson's review, which is great by the way, he talks about how amazing his first fight with a dragon was. And I completely agree. That first encounter with a dragon in that big ass wet field or whatever, and he's like breaking all of the physics objects. It's amazing. It's such an awesome gameplay moment that is just naturally experienced in your exploring of the world. But I also agree with Joseph's point that because the game ends up having like a billion other dragons that you find, there's seriously so many dragons, and they all mostly have the same moveset.
I see. It just loses their charm.
Of the oomph of that first experience. It doesn't mean that first experience is invalidated or
no, because you had the first experience was it was a first experience, you know? Like, your subsequent experiences won't be as good with the dragons because you've seen them a billion times, but, you know, that doesn't take away from anything.
It's like if you ate pizza for dinner every night and eventually you were like, all right, I don't really want to eat dragon pizza anymore. Can we have like rat pizza, Mom? The same goes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I still love pizza. No, don't get me wrong.
Goes for a lot of Elden Ring's catacomb dungeons, similar to the Chalice dungeons in Bloodborne or the shrines in.
And that first pizza was mighty bussin'.
Of the Wild. The quality of experience you might have in one of these copy-paste interiors is a bit of a dice roll. In all of the Souls games, you never know exactly what items you're gonna find as rewards while exploring, but the areas and bosses are usually so interesting to look at and explore that the real reward is really just getting to experience that area.
You know, the real friends are the real journey, the real friend.
area and fight that cool boss. So even if the reward is something you're never gonna use, like another fucking spell, you don't really regret doing it because it was a really cool
It was an experience, and this is shit that you would have never seen had you not gone in there.
experience. The same does not apply to Elden Ring. All
That
of these
sucks.
catacombs are not created equally. Some will have a cool and unique boss and a really useful piece of loot, and others will have a boss you've already seen a bunch of times and an item that you will forget about the second you leave the catacomb. Funny enough, this
stinks.
is actually a problem that's remedied by a second playthrough, because if you have a wiki open, you can just avoid doing all the dungeons.
Just go to where you want to go. Like, go exactly where the shit that you need
that
is
aren't
located.
worth it. But on a first playthrough, the one that's the best and the most memorable,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what all of these have. So if you're like me, you're probably going to do all of them and get pretty burnt out on
Exactly, because you have to. Otherwise, you might miss a really cool one.
fighting the same little statue fuckers and these pieces of shit. For the most part, the enemy
Fuck, that's
and
sick.
boss variety on display in Elden Ring will blow your back out most of the time. But seeing unique experiences that you've cherished, like the reveal and spectacle of fighting
Shit. That is like the craziest fucking arena I've ever seen. Whoa, bro, oh, that shit makes my eyes tear up. Look, my eyes are just like... What the fuck? That's cool.
Astel, natural born of the void. Get copy
Holy shit.
pasted into a separate dungeon, or fighting
No, that's so
a
sad.
godskin fucker, or both of them for like the 5th time. It's a bit disappointing. The nice
Yeah,
thing
for
about
sure.
Elden Ring, though, is that you technically don't have to do most of this. If a boss is too hard, or if an area is too annoying for you, you have so many other options of things to do and bosses to fight and places to see.
But I'll be honest, if I play one of these games, I am doing literally everything there is to do.
But this also potentially leads to some issues with the game's design. Previous Souls games that had a more linear progression path could quickly halt your progress with a super tough boss.
Yeah.
And you would have to either grind enemy mobs for souls to level up, or just slam your head against a wall until you hopefully eventually break through. Elden Ring, being mostly non-linear, actually remedies that problem and finally adds a sort of difficulty slider to the Souls games. If a
Yeah,
boss
pretty
is
much.
giving you a
Without actually ruining the
early,
gameplay.
just go do something else. Maybe find a better weapon. Learn some new skills.
This is an
or
absolute, like, it's so difficult to do this, but this is basically the best implementation of a difficulty slider you can do.
spend time practicing your parries against weaker bosses. I don't know, there's a lot of stuff you can do. Then once you're better prepared, head on back to that boss that was fucking you up and say, "It's opposite day, you slug." Huzzah! That's pretty amazing, right? This makes the game so much more accessible and less intimidating to a new player that's
Unless you come into the game with 0 Souls experience and you don't understand that you're allowed to skip shit. Like, this is not a concept. Here's the problem, right? If you're an average gamer, you have been conditioned into seeing an enemy and you have to beat it to get to the next one. You know what I mean? Like, you've been conditioned to play the games linearly. So unless you're a gamer that is new to games, but at the same, like, you have to be in that perfect middle where you're still new to games, so you like explore a bit too much and you try a bunch of stuff, but also not so new that you actually just like have baby hands and you don't understand how to play this game, because then it would just be way too difficult for you. And I mean, I think that's just a flaw of the game, and it's not like you can just go and tell people in the fucking like description of the game or on the Steam page or whatever that, by the way, you can skip some of our bosses.
been beaten to death by a rat before. But this system of sort of choosing your own difficulty could also potentially rob you of a compelling experience. This game is so goddamn big that there's bound to be stuff in the early areas that you won't find until way later in the game. And when you do find it, maybe it's a super awesome, unique boss battle with like a really cool reward that you beat in like 2 hits. In some cases, this feels amazing. It fully feeds into the power fantasy of wanting to make the biggest.
Yeah, you come back to what you did like
super
at first, but then
satisfying
you're
to
like strong, and suddenly that guy that gave you so much pain, the copy-pasted version of it, you're like, and he's dead.
totally fart on a boss that once had you breaking 2x4s from Menards over your leg. But sometimes it can feel underwhelming and disappointing. I think the fact that the game doesn't have level scaling for enemies is much better than an alternative where it did. Because level scaling can often make a game world feel pretty artificial and your progression feel pretty meaningless. But I do think there's a world.
It doesn't make it feel meaningless. It does become meaningless because why? Like that's literally all you're learning is how to get better at playing the game. You're never actually progressing.
Have a bit of both. I think if you visit areas in the game that you're very obviously over leveled for, the game could maybe flash a little prompt that says, hey, do you want to make this fight scale to your level to maybe make it a bit more satisfying, and maybe we give you extra runes as a reward for.
And it should happen in a natural way, like, you know, not as a prompt, but as a in-game mechanic. Like there's some fucking statue you can break that is all like there's gonna be some fucking lever you can pull that you can only pull if you're of a certain strength level above what the lever is, and if you do it, suddenly the dungeon becomes harder, but the bosses also drop better loot, so it's actually worth doing. And you know, the way they're balanced is that to pull that lever, you have to be way above the strength level of the intended strength level of said boss or dungeon.
Difficulty? I would love that. Mark Brown of Game Maker's Toolkit makes a great point in his video about how Hollow Knight actually changes the layout of early areas and ups the difficulty of enemies to keep things.
And this was one of my favorite parts, things to happen to the game as well.
And I think that's a great example of something that Elden Ring could have potentially done as well. Speaking of rune,
coming back to old areas and seeing them change as your actions affect the world, like beating a boss will change how the earlier area looks, or something you did. That makes the world feel so real and is like one of the craziest feelings ever.
Rewards for
you just come back to the first area and it's like it's all alien and the paths are different, and is this because of me? Did I do this? Is this a real world where my actions have real consequences? Like that is gives me shivers just thinking about that shit. I cannot wait for Silk Song, man.
Holy shit. They are all over the place in this game and make like zero fucking sense. Donkey talks about this in his Elden Ring video, and I wholeheartedly agree. Like, the difficulty of an enemy does not correlate to how much money you get for defeating them. It's honestly ridiculous in a lot of cases.
I think I skipped the whole point.
That's a great example of something that Elden Ring could have potentially done as well. Speaking of rune rewards for defeating enemies, holy shit, they are all over the place in this game.
Oh, as in, okay, I see a problem.
Zero fucking sense. Donkey talks about this in his Elden Ring video.
So you can get a shit ton of like
and I wholeheartedly
that makes sense.
Like, the difficulty of an enemy does not correlate to how much money you get for defeating them. It's honestly ridiculous in a lot of cases.
Well, not fair. Fair is it fair, but as in like I get it.
Also, let's talk about respeccing stat points. Once you defeat Renala at the Wizard Academy Raya Lucaria, you unlock a way to use specific larval tier items to reallocate all of the stat points that you've spent money.
That's good. That's awesome. That's a really good idea.
Amazing. This means that if you find a weapon or spell that you really fuck with but don't have the stats for, you can retool your character to be able to use them and switch up your playstyle and experience one of the many amazing builds that you can do in this game.
Fuck yeah.
Why the fuck can't you do the same thing with weapons? Elden Ring offers no way of transferring or respeccing weapon upgrades from one weapon to another, and it makes zero fucking sense to me.
So what does he mean by that?
So many fucking cool weapons in this game, and it is a total pain in the ass to make switching to them actually.
Oh yeah, because you have to grind up, like, what are they called? Like, you know, the House of +5 sword, right? So that means you've upgraded it 5 times, and each time it's more expensive, or maybe not, I'm not sure, but you have to use a material. Yeah, required items, somber smithing stones. Exactly, so every time you upgrade your weapon, you use either that or something else. I don't know, again, haven't played much of the game. That is horrible. Yeah, so like, why can't I go and get my stones back out of my fucking weapons to slap them into a different one, huh? Yeah, no, that's an obvious design flaw. I bet there's a mod that fixes that.
Yes, you can find the smithing bells that let you buy an unlimited amount of upgrade resources from the merchant, but A, what if you don't find some of those bells on your first playthrough where you're not looking stuff up? And B, I don't understand what the harm would be in letting you get back some of your upgrade resources from a weapon.
Yeah, like don't even get full of them, you know? Exactly, make this like a +4 maybe to even make it balanced.
Went back to its base level. right?
Yeah. How does that ruin the
You'd
gameplay?
be so much more excited to find shit, even if it's something out of your typical wheelhouse. The Resident Evil 4 remake, which is fantastic, by the way. I talk about it on my second channel, NakeyJakey. Like, subscribe.
I was still shocked when I found out that's an actual channel that he made and not a joke, but I
Rate, comment.
hit it up, I guess. NakeyJakey, here we go.
5 stars. Lets you sell weapons you've upgraded back to the merchant, and you get most of the money that you've put into upgrading that weapon, which is amazing.
And that makes so much sense.
Why can't Elden Ring have the same thing? Another thing that can feel so ass backwards and outdated are the NPC side quests and how you progress them. These games have always had super convoluted NPC side quests, and I know it's partly because Miyazaki knows that with the internet, everyone's gonna get together and figure it out, so he can afford to make it complicated and whatever.
Right, so his idea is that like when you get this quest, you look up a thing on Wiki and you have like the whole community, and you get info from the whole community trying to figure out what the correct way to do it is.
I get that, but I still think that some of these more basic ones should be doable by just using your common sense.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's pretty much a requirement. It's stupid to have you go on a wiki.
Their dialogue or do something until you.
Maybe on a second playthrough. I think a second playthrough wiki opener, that's 100% you should do that. Like, I think that's part of the fun of going a second playthrough in a lot of these games that have way too many options. Like, a game where beating it once doesn't, most of the time, will not show you everything the game has to offer is great, because then it gives you something to try on a second playthrough. You open up the wiki and you find out that, oh, holy shit, look at all these things I didn't know existed. Okay, let me fucking play around with all of them.
Leave the area when it's a smaller, more linear game. But it's an entirely different thing to have that same bullshit in a massive open world game where people are supposed to move around from place to place, but will never do it while you're watching them. So you gotta go rest at a bonfire and then wait, I messed up. You gotta rest again to load the guy in because it's not nighttime if you rested and then died and then came back. Like, what the fuck? I went where the fucker told me to. Why does this require so many other extra unseen steps?
Yeah,
I only
that's just bad
about this because the writing and voice acting in this game is so good, like so heartbreakingly good, and because the storytelling and lore bits are so few and far between, you'll
it has a
chase
huge
after
impact.
whatever scraps
Exactly.
you can find. But at the end of the day, I make these videos to criticize the things that I love. Video games. I love them so very much. And I love Elden Ring more than most other video games. I am so eternally grateful to be alive in the same timeline that FromSoftware is cranking out games of this quality. Elden Ring is not only a continuation of the Dark Souls franchise, it is an evolution of FromSoftware's trailblazing game design. A design that I think defined the last 10 years of gaming, and with Elden Ring, could very well define the next 10 years of gaming as well. A massive journey with some of the most beautiful vistas I've seen since Windows Vista. And
I mean, how long does it take to make the next game that's either the same quality or better than this? Forever, right? Like, this is going to be the Souls game now for a while.
Grueling bosses that I have taken on and overcome since Windows Vista. Thank you to Hidetaka Miyazaki and FromSoftware for taking a chance with Demon Souls. Thank you for making some of my favorite games ever made. And thank you for watching this video. I'll see you later, gamers.
Goodbye, gamer. Why do you make it white? Love Raz. Fucking awesome video. I don't know why I'm still not subscribed. Oh, that's because I'm on my other channel. Whoopsies. That explains it.
FromSoftware.
On the...
FromSoftware.
Here we go. Yeah, we are subscribed on this channel. I was just on the wrong one. That's my fault. Sir. Epic video, sir. Let's go bigger so you guys see. Epic video, sir. What do you have to say? That was a fucking slapperoonie and a half. If you open the description, there's going to be his link to, obviously. Second link is going to be my main channel. Check it out if you don't want to, but I don't care. Do give this video a watch because that's just the nice thing to do. And self-blogs are cringe, so I'm just going to sign out. But hey, my outros are really fucking loud, so if you don't want to hear it, you know, click on one of these two videos right now because I'm about to do my really fucking loud outro and you don't want to hear it, so click on one of these two videos right now. That was That was a banger video, man. I can't wait for the next one.